ownership shapes what you see. The myth of balance becomes even more troubling when placed against the reality of consolidated media ownership. Because balance is not applied neutrally, it is applied selectively, and the selection reflects the interests of owners. When Bell Media's vice president meddled directly in CTV's news coverage during a CRTC review that affected Bell's business interests, it was not an isolated incident. It was a documented example of what concentrated ownership makes structurally possible. When Post Media directed its 16 papers to endorse the same candidate, it was not a coincidence. It was editorial policy set by ownership. The question of who owns a media outlet is never just a business question. It is a political question. It is a question about whose version of events reaches the public, whose interests are treated as common sense, and whose grievances are treated as fringe concerns. In a system where 5 conglomerates shape the information environment of 38 million Canadians, the range of permissible thought narrows. Not through censorship, but through the far more powerful mechanism of emphasis, framing, and omission. Stories that challenge the business model of the parent company do not get killed dramatically. They simply get less space, less follow-up, less prominence. The drift is guided. The result is passive-looking. The direction of the pressure is real. Silence as a habit, and its consequences. This is why the establishment of silence matters. Not just in international law, not just in media coverage, but in every domain this book has examined. Institutions that develop the habit of staying quiet about powerful people breaking rules find that habit transferable. The same posture that says nothing about a world leader ignoring an international warrant says nothing about a corporation evading taxes. The same editorial culture that manufactures balance around inconvenient facts manufactures balance around inconvenient policies. And the people who pay the price are always the same people. Those without the leverage to make their silence matter. Those whose suffering does not disrupt any comfortable arrangement. Those who were never consulted when the rules were written and are never protected when the rules bend. This book has argued throughout that consistent pressure applied over decades in one direction is the mechanism by which power entrenches itself. The establishment of silence is guided drift applied to truth. It is the careful, sustained management of what can be said, what must be balanced, what gets investigated, and what gets forgotten. What we owe each other instead. The antidote is not nostalgia for some golden age of objective journalism that never quite existed. It is the insistence, stubborn, unglamorous, ordinary, that truth is distinguishable from its denial, that accountability applies or it doesn't, and that the test of any institution is whether it holds the powerful to the same standard as the powerless. If international courts issue warrants, those warrants must be enforced, or the entire architecture of international accountability is exposed as a system that serves the weak and protects the strong. If journalism claims to serve the public, it must do so regardless of whether the truth inconveniences those who sign its operating budgets. If governments claim to uphold democratic values, they must apply those values to the structures of power within their own borders, not just in speeches about the international order. Truth is not a hypothetical theory. It is not a perspective. It is not one side of a debate that requires artificial equivalence to be fair. It is what happened, what is happening, and what the evidence shows. The establishment of silence depends on our willingness to accept managed ambiguity where clarity is available. It depends on our exhaustion, our distraction, and our quiet accommodation to a narrowing of what can be said. That accommodation is a choice. and it can be unmade. When institutions go silent, ordinary people must fill the void with honesty. When journalism narrows, citizens must widen it by sharing what they know, naming what they see, and refusing the false comfort of both sides when one side is simply wrong. The establishment has had its say. The pressure has run in one direction long enough. Now it's our turn.